Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
And we are off to lighting the Shabbat candles. And for that, I would like to invite up the Pimentel Diaz family, Maddie, Masriel, and Gabe, to come to the front.
And we'll be on page 3 and then page 2. And use this so that we can.
Thank you. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, guys.
Read it in English?
Oh, good.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen.
And there you go. Check out. On page 9 on the bottom, together, we offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God.
In our Kabbalat Shabbat melodies, we begin with Maya Hayom. How truly beautiful this day is, this day of Shabbat. Join with me. Page 12. Page 10, rather. Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. And we continue with a Hasidic melody, V'nomar Lefanav, on page 346. Page 346. ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה, לפניו שירה חדשה, ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה, ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה. הללויה, 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 הללויה. ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה, ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה, ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה, ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה. We come to Lecha Dodi as we welcome the Sabbath bride on pages 20 and 21. In this folk melody, we'll do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and we'll rise on our 9th verse and face our entrance into our beautiful sanctuary to welcome the Sabbath bride. Join with us. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם ניסוחה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תהילה. לך אדוני, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך אדוני, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום העטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך אדוני, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please have a seat.
We conclude this first part of our service with Chatzi Kaddish on page 26. יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, Yama divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chaye chon uvyom echon u'b'chaye dol beit Yisrael bagala u'bizman kariv v'imro
Amen.
Yesh merabah mevorach Leolam ulam yomaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitbarich Romam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudeshah Barichu Le'ela min kovechata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran Yama Ve'imru.
Amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu on page 28, our call to worship.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai-lai-lai, yai-lai-lai-lai, yai-lai-lai-lai-lai-lai. Oh, yai-lai-lai, yai-lai-lai-lai, yai-lai-lai-lai-lai.
Page 30 together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv ha'aravim b'chokhma poteach she'arim ובתבונה משנה עתים ומחליב את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו בורא יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור ומביא יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הערבי.
On page 32. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu lemadeta, otanu lemadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shokbeinu, u'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha. ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Hashem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
Please have a seat. Page 36, Ve'ahavta. Please join with Cantor.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 32 in the English, together. All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us. You alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign and Savior, who delivers us from oppressors' hands and saves us from tyrants' fists. You work wonders without number, marvels beyond count. You give us life and steady our footsteps. You perform miracles for us before Pharaoh, signs and wonders in the land of the Egyptians. You led your people Israel out from their midst to freedom for all time. When your people witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously.
Join together in this melody for the high holidays, which is never far from our thoughts, even on this Shabbat. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'etar ba'kodesh, nora te'ilot osef ele, malechotecha ra'ov anecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam, zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Page 42. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, O guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God our going and coming, to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Baruch atah Adonai haborei sukkah shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai haborei sukkah shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo, ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haborei sukkah shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
Page 44, Vishamu. People of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
On page 46 for the Amidah, please rise as you're able. And remember, we are going to be doing a lot of inserts, everything that says, during Shabbat Shuvah. That's what's going to be coming in today, this one Shabbat of the year.
So follow the bouncing cantor, I guess. Adonai Svatai Tiftach, Adonai Svatai Tiftach, Ofi Agid Tehilatecha, Ofi Agid Tehilatecha. Baruch אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו, זוכרנו לחיים, זוכרנו, זוכרנו לחיים, זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכה לחיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך הרחמים, זוכי צוריו, לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, המלך הקדוש.
Please have a seat. Page 55 on the top. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 57. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha, v'yirah na'avod. Turn to Modim, page 58. Take a moment thinking about, this is our prayer of gratitude. What is it that you are grateful that we were able to let go of at this high holiday season? We already did our Tashlich on Rosh Hashanah, but still, what are some of the things that you want to let go of as we move into this new year? Of course, if you want to feel free to share please do, but don't feel obligated. Yes. Grateful for being here in the sanctuary. The first since COVID started. Yep, it's a beautiful space, so good to be here. Yes. Letting go of beliefs that stifle. That's a good one. Yes. Yes, I see a hand. Yeah. I couldn't quite hear you. Can your mom maybe repeat what? Oh, being back inside. A lot of folks are grateful for that. That's wonderful. Nice. Anybody else? I saw some hands. Well, it's a holiday season. It's a season of looking into ourselves. So, and a lot of things can be very personal. So I get it. We don't want to share these pieces, but at the same token, we have this opportunity of letting go and starting fresh, starting anew. So this is something I think we all can agree that we are grateful for as Jews. All right, page 60 on the bottom, the Chatima. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, v'lechana'eh lehodot. Page 60, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom, Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom, Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרסה נשא טובה. ניזכר וניכתב לפניך, לפניך. אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
Take a moment of silence now for the prayers of our heart. Feel free to use the meditations on page 62, and we're going to come back in a minute.
page 349 at the bottom of the page. Join in these words by Hannah Senesh. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, ha'or ve'ayam, rishu shel hamayim, be'rak hashamayim, tefilat ha'adam, ha'or ve'ayam, rishu shel hamayim, be'rak hashamayim, tefilat ha'adam. O God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
Shabbat Shalom and Gmar Chatima Tova, everybody. What if? I'm sure we have all asked ourselves the very same question at some point in our lives. What if I went to that school and not the other? What if I dated that person and not someone else? What if I took a job in that city and not that other place? The list of possibilities can go on infinitely. When I was in rabbinical school in New York City, I went to see a show on Broadway that dealt with exactly the same question. It was very aptly named If Then, and it starred Idina Menzel of Wicked and Frozen fame. The musical centered around the life of Elizabeth, a woman in her 30s who returns to New York City after a divorce. She meets up with some old friends from her college years at Washington Square Park, who encourage her to reconsider her priorities in life. One friend tells her to be more spontaneous, live in the moment, and of course, get a hipper nickname like Liz instead of the old-fashioned Elizabeth. The other friend, on the other hand, encourages her to be more strategic about her life goals and pursue her career. Oh, and why doesn't she go back to her nickname Beth, the one she had in college years when she was studying city planning? From that point onward, the plot breaks up into two parallel storylines. One follows the life of Liz, and the other the life of Beth. While Liz spontaneously stays at the park listening to a drummer and just happens to bump into her future husband-to-be, Beth picks up a phone call from another former college friend, now a big macher in the city planning field, who offers her to take on a position in his firm. The show leaves it open in the end which of the two options Elizabeth goes for, but the audience gets to see both choices, as well what their consequences would be. Speaking of choices, this week's Torah portion is Vayelech, the second to last we read on a Shabbat from the Torah. Moses is about to leave the Israelites, and he passes on the leadership to Joshua. God also reiterates the importance of keeping the commandments, an important choice for them to do as well. Unlike most decisions we get to make in our lives, the Israelites get in not always pretty sneak peek here of what the consequences of their choice will be, just as Elizabeth in If Then. If we look back at the history of our tradition, Judaism has always had a strong emphasis on us human beings being active agents in our lives. The Israelites' former neighbors did not share the idea. Just take the ancient Greeks and Romans. In Greco-Roman history and mythology more, humans are mainly portrayed as puppets of the gods. But even the gods themselves were subject to the fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and Athapos, female personifications of destiny. These three would spin, measure, and eventually cut everybody's life thread. And the idea continues in medieval European literature and art. You can see the Wheel of Fortune, not the show, which actually was symbolizing the capriciousness of fate. Those who are on the top one day can be at the bottom the next, and vice versa. But also in many other contemporary religions, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam, the idea of predestination is very much still around. In the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, all humans are subject to karma, the idea of what goes around comes around, which has great influence on everybody's life and later rebirth. In Islam, the idea of predestination is actually so central that it's one of Islam's 6 articles of faith called qada, which means, or is referring to the implementation of God's decrees. In other words, God has already decided how history is going to unfold and what will happen to people. If you translate that idea of fate and destiny into the secular society we live in today, we have the discussion, for example, between nature and nurture, led by scientists and non-scientists. Are we a product of our genetic heritage or of the environment we get to live in? Judaism, on the other hand, considers the ability to make choices an integral part of the human condition. Already in the Torah's creation story, we have Adam and Eve eat the fruit from the Eitz Hada'at Tov Vara, the tree of knowledge of good and bad, by which they and humanity after them gains the capacity to make decisions, which of course doesn't mean that it's always something that's easy to do. So with this great power to make decisions comes great responsibility. Our actions have an enormous impact, not only on ourselves, but also those around us. At the same time, we should also not get paralyzed, though, by all the many options and choices that creep up on us every day. You might have heard the story of Buridan's donkey, named after the medieval French philosopher Jean Buridan. The story tells of a hungry donkey that is standing between 2 identical stacks of hay and is faced with the decision which one of the 2 to pick. Ultimately, the donkey starves because it simply cannot decide which of the 2 to pick. As strange as it might sound, the same thing can happen to us as well. If we become too absorbed in if-then thinking, we lose our opportunity to be active shapers of our lives. And yes, I'm aware, I just used an if-then construction myself. Like Elizabeth and the ancient Israelites, throughout our lives, we get to choose between different options, different paths, blessing and curse. So let's do our best to choose to be a blessing for ourselves and those around us. Shabbat Shalom, Gmar Chatima Tova. About to have some announcements, and for that I would like to invite up Vivian Morrison to the front. think if you want to use the lower podium, there's an active mic up there.
Thank you.
You don't have to be too close.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, announcements for today. Starting with services tomorrow at on Zoom only. There will be a Torah study at 9 from 9 to 9:45. Services begin at 10 and Havdalah at 7:30. And the links for these services can be found in your Shabbat Shalom. To celebrate Havdalah in your household, the blessings are made over wine or another ceremonial beverage, fragrant spices, and a braided candle or two matches joined in a flame. Links for the Havdalah blessings can be also found in your Shabbat Shalom. Pilgrimage to the Home of Peace Cemetery will be this Sunday, the 12th at 3 p.m. Face coverings are required. Directions to the cemetery can be found on their website. The rest of the high holidays, Kol Nidre, will be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 15th of September, Yom Kippur, the following day. Morning services at 10:30. Discussion groups will be at 12:45. Afternoon service begins at 3:30, and Yisker Nihila at 5 o'clock. Now, those registered to attend in person, please remember your bracelet and your mask. Those who register to attend services virtually are able to pick up a copy of the Mishkan HaNefash here at the temple sometime next week. By next Tuesday, it will be decided whether Yom Kippur will be in-house or outside. The Break the Fast swag bags are being provided by the Sisterhood, and they will be available one per person after the Nihila service. Sukkot volunteers are needed to set up the sukkah, to decorate it, and to put it up. And please call Leslie Bright if you would like to volunteer. And that will happen on the 19th, Sunday the 19th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Friday services continued as a multi-access and will begin at 6 o'clock each time. The religious school registration is still open. Sunday school begins on the 6th of October. There is still registration open for adult ed classes. The Shabbat Shalom has a link for registration. There's a list of classes in the bulletin. Some are online and some are in person. Judaica hours are from 10:30 till noon or 5:30 to 6 on Friday. We want to thank Maddie, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing her last name, Pimentel Diaz, and her family, her sons, for lighting our Sabbath candles tonight. To Randy and Larry for their services today, and for the sound crew also. If you need to contact the clergy, please do it via email. And that's our announcements for today.
Oh, thank you. In the midst of our Shabbat rest, take a moment to think of those who need of healing of body, mind, and soul. If there's anybody of whom you're thinking at this season, please feel free to share their name. Yes. Oh, there's more. Oh.
the Pimentel Diaz family, a dear friend, Israel Friedman, who had surgery today.
Also, another group of people we keep in our minds and prayers for healing. This Shabbat marks the 20th anniversary of the terror attacks of 9/11. I want to share a prayer for the survivors of 9/11 for healing. It's written by Eldon Solovi, the great liturgist of the Reform movement. God of the survivor, God of the mourner and the witness, grant solace and peace to those still held by physical, emotional, and spiritual distress from the attacks of 9/11. Release them from visions of death and destruction, from guilt or shame, from fear or anger. Bind their wounds with your steadfast love. Lift them on your wings of kindness and grace. Blessed are those who found peace. Blessed are those without tranquility. Blessed are those who speak. Blessed are those who stay silent. Blessed are those who have healed. Blessed are those who suffer. Blessed are those who forgive. Blessed are those who cannot forgive. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, source of strength for survivors of violence and tragedy in every land and every age. Blessed are you, Rock of Israel, source of hope and comfort. Misha Berach prayer, a prayer for healing, you can find on page 253. Please join. Turn to the closing prayers of our service, page 282 for the Aleinu. Please rise as you're able. We can be moving to page 287 from there.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please have a seat. take a moment now to think of those who are no longer with us. First, I'd like to invite those on a period of Shiva or Shloshim, first 7 or 30 days of mourning, to rise at this moment. To extend the traditional words of consolation. Hamakom hinachem etchem, betoch she'ah avalei Tzion, Yerushalayim. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. In the Shabbat, we commemorate Martha Pato Pimentel and Odette Mizrahi. For the Yahrzeits, those marking the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise at this moment. From our community, we commemorate the following: J. Stephen Babbitt, Blossom Becker, Rebecca Brooks, Stanley Farber, Olida Fields, Saul Friedman, Moishe Gershman, Hannah Gisser, Mariella Hayden, Rose Hertz, Alex Josowitz, Arnold Koltenik, Leiber Katznelson, Joseph Kleiman, Rose Lampkin, Laurie Lamond, Estelle Lasco, Don Liebrick, Albert Leroy, Cynthia McVeigh, Anita Mermelstein, Bill Olson, Cliff Provençal, Lena Rotman, Miriam Sassoon, Louis Seitz, Herb Simon, David Sklar, Irma Sklar, Sarah Tone, and Rose Wolf. Is anybody else of whom you're thinking at this time and season whose name was not mentioned? Please feel free to share. And also, in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of 9/11, a memorial prayer, also by Alden Salovi. Creator of all, source and shelter, grant a perfect rest under your tabernacle of peace to those who died in the 9/11 attacks on the United States. Remember the work of their hands and the message of their hearts. Grant their families peace and comfort for your name's sake and for the sake of those who perished. Bring an end to violence and terror speedily in our days. May their memories be sanctified with joy and love. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life, a living blessing in our midst. And let us say, Amen. For all them about to recite the Mourner's Kaddish, it's on page 294. As you're able, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach chirotei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yom echon, u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba mevarach, le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'a v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitada v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei d'Kudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata u'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be a blessing. Please have a seat. And we already had the thank yous before. Thanks to everybody who made the service happen. Also to Deb for accompanying us beautifully every service here. Thank you as well. And we are going to be closing with a song that's
maybe not that song, but
catchy tune though. Which is Hashivenu. You can find it on page 358 of your Siddur.
the text says, "Return to us to you, and we will renew our days of old." We return every year to this time, to these moments of the high holidays. How will they be different for each of us this year? Sing with me quietly. Hashivenu. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha.
for this evening is Kiddush and Motzi. And for the Kiddush, we turn to page 5. And the bread just got delivered. Thank you. Please rise.
Please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron le'maaseh bereishit, ihu yom tehila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher letziat mitzrayim, kiranu achata, yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava u'v'ratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim.
Aye. Yeah, red Kiddush wine on white, a holiday mask, not a good combo.
Exactly. Every joint together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, sheyavon. All right.
Shana Tova, Shabbat Shalom, and good seeing all of you. If you can move directly outside, then you can